When was your last I gotta get the heck out of here moment? My friend and I were out drinking and she met the hottest guy we've ever seen. I was dating someone else, so I was just there for fun moral support. He ends up inviting us over. I wasn't about to let her go alone, so I tag along and plan on sleeping on his couch. His roommate is with him and I make it very clear from the get-go I am not interested. We get in their car and he starts driving. We're in the car for a while, and neither of us recognize where we are. Once arriving at their apartment, I realize that their couch is covered in random crap, and there is just enough space for me to sit. They have a cat, and his litter box is just chilling in the living room, and hasn't been cleaned in God knows how long. My feet were hurting from wearing heels and the guy tried to help his roommate out by trying to sell me on using his spa stuff to soak my feet, and maybe get a massage. I held firm on the couch. It's 3 AM and there's nowhere for me to sleep, so I check to see how far we are from home. We're freaking 40 minutes from home, and an Uber costs $50. I'm not paying for this. This was her adventure, so I decide to wait until the morning. The roommate invites me to watch a movie. I take the bed and he takes the floor. He puts on Transformers to watch. Needless to say I fell asleep quickly. I wake up early and hound my roommate to wake up so we can hightail it out of there. The drinking also gave me liquor shoots and the guy's bathroom was A, disgusting, and B, right next to his room. So he would have heard my stomach exploding into the toilet. Our Uber is over 10 minutes away, and I'm gonna poop my pants. I considered paying the Uber driver to stop at a Walgreens because I didn't think I'd make it all the way home. Thankfully, he arrived soon and I made it home without dying. And she definitely paid for the Uber home. Holy crap, you're a good friend. I told this once before, but when I was about 8 years old, I was in the car with my parents. They were arguing, which they did a lot, but being trapped in that metal box with both of them screaming back and forth became too much. We stopped at a red light and I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of the car and started running. My mom, who was in the passenger seat, ran out after me, and after he pulled over the car my dad did as well. They caught up to me and their attitudes completely changed. They promised they wouldn't fight again, a promise they broke time and time again until their divorce, but they never did it again in the car. Good for little you. I will never understand how two grown adults fail to understand the impact of their shittiness to each other in relation to their children. It's gut-wrenching for a child. It's even worse when they had it done to them as a kid and fail to understand the chain impact. High five, 8-year-old you. When I was 19 and cute, I lived in a rural area on a dead-end street. I was raking by the road and a white van went down the street slowly and left the road. Then they came back on the road and parked about 1,000 feet down, in front of someone's house. No one got out and about 5 minutes later the van went down the road slowly again. There were no other people anywhere, just me, a young woman. I went in and locked the door and saw the van a few more times. I didn't leave my house for the rest of the day. Some say he's still looking for the house with the broken dishwasher. During Hurricane Harvey, my story is not nearly as harrowing as some, but I live on a lake and right in front of a channel that directs water to the lake when it rains a lot. It's normally empty, but of course this was Harvey, so it just kept rising and rising. I woke up one morning to find someone had placed flood markers along the channel. That told me somebody in the know was expecting it to fill up and overflow, thus flooding my house. I freaked the frick out, piled whatever I could on top of counters, wrapped the bottom of my furniture in plastic, likely wouldn't have helped much, took pictures for insurance, and booked it to my mom's house with all our animals and children in tow. As we left our neighborhood, an entire horde of pickup trucks pulling boats was heading the same direction we had just left. My house did not flood, thank God, but a good chunk of my neighborhood and the surrounding areas did. I didn't even have it that bad, and those were honest to God the most stressful few days of my life so far. Felt so awful for everyone who wasn't as lucky. Our dog was diagnosed with cancer last August, and within a month he had gotten to the point of us having to put him down. It's the first time I've ever made that decision, and the fact that everything happened so quickly made things so much harder than I ever imagined it would be. We knew it was aggressive, but he took a steep dive in the last 12 hours. Even with the knowledge that he was sick, it happened very quickly. We got home from the vet just kind of numb. I sat on the couch where just a few hours before he was sighting happily, surrounded by his collar, food bowl, toys, tons of pictures of him, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I could not be in that room anymore. I told my wife that I needed to take a walk and went out to the backfield where he loved to roll, almost having a panic attack the whole way, passing his favorite spots on the property. I finally got to the field and just collapsed to the ground sobbing. I probably spent 45 minutes laying on the ground, crying for most of it. Eventually I went back to the house, and everything still sucked, but the release of emotions at least made it bearable. I still miss the crap out of him. He was a fantastic dog, and he should have been around for much longer. That wasn't the end he deserved. I was at a baseball card convention when news of the incel van attack in Toronto broke. It was a slow afternoon, so a group of us dealers gathered around the lobby's TV to watch, and the other guys started defending him. If he had been an Islamic terrorist, the freaking media would have kept that crap under wraps. And what do you think's gonna happen when women only go for jerks? Then the egghead in our group argued that those with less access to sex suffer just as much as those with low incomes, and that we should re-educate women to find those men with low sexual market value attractive. I did not want to find out what he meant by re-educate, so I packed up my cards and left. Any mention of re-education never makes me feel like I should learn more. What a coincidence this question comes up now. This experience just happened to me like 3 days ago. So my boyfriend and I were roommates with this guy who had been one of our best friends for over a year. The three of us were inseparable. We did everything together pretty much. We were all super openly loving. It was so great, or so it seemed. Anyway, this guy, I'll call him Dan, had made a Reddit account in the last month after I introduced him to it, and he had been sort of not so subtly hinting that he wanted me to look at his page. He would go out of the way to tell me how to spell his username. For example, I didn't, because I didn't want to invade his privacy. Reddit isn't so much the type of social media you share with your friends, right? So anyway, 3 days ago I looked. In summary, Dan had spammed our unsent letters with these delusional manifestos about how madly in love with me he was and how awful and disgusting my boyfriend is. How he had faked a best friendship with him for over a year to get closer and closer to me. He cited stories of my boyfriend being an awful person that straight never happened, or were so wildly exaggerated that they were unrecognizable. He wrote post after post obsessing over the fact that he was sure that my boyfriend and I were having sex in the shower when he was right outside the door. Something that never happened. He spoke about me like I was this object, this prize to be won. How he faked every aspect of himself that I loved as a friend so I would eventually fall in love him and leave my boyfriend for him. I showed my boyfriend the page and we packed up all our crap and fled in a matter of minutes. Never been so freaked out in my whole freaking life. Been dealing with the fallout of learning our best friend was never really our friend at all. It's been rough, folks. Was a Jehovah's Witnesses. Born in. Always had some doubts, disagreements, but it was all I knew and didn't want to die at Armageddon, so I got baptized. Went to a district convention, 2010ish, where they announced a major doctrinal change regarding the end. Did more research and came to the realization they are a cult. Immediate nausea. Took me years to successfully escape without being officially kicked out. Didn't want to lose contact with my family. Job sucked and fav co-workers all quit at the same time. Too small town. Friends vanished after a breakup. Creepy ex. Best friend betrayed my trust. Heck yeah, I'm moving away. When I was 18, my abusive stepfather and I got into a heated argument about something trivial that ended with him telling me to move out effective immediately. Told my mom about the sexual abuse he had forced me to endure for years. My mom, one of my closest confidants, didn't believe me, and I took that as my last ticket to escape to freedom. Move over and hour away. Planning on moving further, and I've been NC except for holidays, so I can spoil my siblings. Family isn't family if they don't treat you like it, and it's okay to leave toxic and abusive people in the dust. It's been 2 years and I'm now married, have 3 cats, and I'm no longer under the same stress I was under while sharing a roof with my abuser and enabler. Therapy and distance are my best friends. When my landlord just laughed when I told him about the people in the next apartment banging and yelling all day and all night. A couple hours ago, LOL. I've been trying to work things out with the mother of my children for a couple months now, and she had sworn that she cut all contact with the guy she cheated on me with. Wheel. Her phone goes off while she's in the shower and I see his name pop up. Check the text, yeah, I suck. And sure enough, he's talking to her like they're still together. She had deleted the previous texts. I seriously felt the room spin and thought I was going to pass out. Didn't say a word to her, just left. I messaged her just now that I knew everything and to only contact me in regards to the kids. But yeah, cheaters never change, kids. I had gone with friends to find some pot. This was 1992-ish BTW. So we go to this new dealer and she is at her apartment with some real shady dudes. So she says she's going to get the pot but wants to finish something real quick. She wants to finish smoking crack. I split and made my way to a friend's place a few blocks away. My buddies stayed and got their pot. After they smoked crack for the first time. Only one of those 3 dudes I was with that night are still with us. Just today at work, I had an 80-something-year-old man verbally assault me for trying to stalk during daylight hours. That's my job. Living in Lyon, France right now. Lots of protests that turn violent. Was with friends in a big open space when a bunch of protesters started running towards police with riot shields and automatic weapons. Explosions started going off and I was the only one not paralyzed by shock and had to get my friends out of the area immediately. Always a fun time in France. It's actually great. Everyone has just sort of hit their breaking point, evidently. A few years back I went to a festival with a friend of my brother's. I'd met the guy a few times before. Didn't know much about him besides the fact he was an old hippie type. I was about 20 at the time and didn't have more than $50 to my name. So I did volunteer work for the festival in exchange for my ticket. This involved setting up what were essentially electrical power poles and stringing high tension steel wire between them for the purpose of attaching a canvas shade covering. When we finished that work, we moved on to other tasks like painting, finishing up ticketing booths, etc. At the end of the work one day, we went down to the river to float in some inner tubes and relax. This is where the vibe changed and fast. He kept saying off and dark remarks that were irrelevant to the current conversation. Things like, you know, once you die that's it. There's no reincarnation or anything out of the blue. Huge red flags going up. All this shortly after I'd finished the required 20 hours to pay for my ticket. I gave it the night and chalked it up to old hippie crap. But the next day we suddenly needed to move camp and that meant more permanence to our stay in the festival. Last chance for in and out with the truck and trips to town. Maybe it was just an anxiety panic attack, but seeing all the heavy machinery the next day and his mood remaining dark and unfriendly, I decided on our last trip to town that day I was out. I had him pull over and let me out right when we got into town, with only a backpack of some of my belongings, much of my stuff still at camp. Took me 2 days to hitchhike home, and thankfully a kind lady at a small town's general store gave me a blanket to get through a very cold night. I don't regret my experience, even if I was wrong about the situation and just being a paranoid nerd. It taught me that I'm capable of leaving my possessions behind in favor of my safety. Oh man, I've got one. During winter break at college, I'm the only person staying in my apartment. I invite my girlfriend, who I eventually married, over to hang out. Next door, they're throwing a big party. We don't mind, though they are getting loud. But then, the fire alarm goes off. Some idiot in their party set it off, probably from smoking. It's one of those industrial alarms, so there's no ignoring it. We go outside and see literally at least 50 people streaming out of this apartment. We're gathered with them all by the parking lot when, all of a sudden, a fight breaks out. Actually, not just one fight, 4 fights. So we stay back and just watch the chaos of drunk high idiots trying to punch each other. But then a gunshot goes off. We all run away like rabbits. Most people run off into the woods, but I bring my girlfriend back into my apartment. Keep in mind, the industrial fire alarm is still going off. We call 911 and report the gunshot. Then we wait. My car is in the parking lot that someone just fired a gun in. We have nowhere to go, and between the adrenaline and the alarm, we're starting to freak out. We trying hiding in the closet, in order to reduce the sound of the alarm. It barely does anything. We can't take it anymore. After 10 minutes, we decide to make a break for my car and get out. We leave and see a bunch of fire trucks and cop cars in our parking lot. I start moving for my car but get stopped by a cop. Here's how that goes. Cop, hold up. Did you hear a gunshot? Me. Yes sir. Cop, did you see a muzzle flash? Me. No, I don't think so. Cop, okay, get out of here. And he waves us by. We drove to a quiet road and parked along a field and just let the adrenaline wear off for an hour or two. Man, frick that night. So I was at McDonald's with my wife, another couple and our 7-month-old daughter. Things are going well but there is a homeless older woman sitting a few booths from us staring at us and talking to herself. We are having a great time chatting until suddenly this lady walks up to us and asks us for money for food. The entire time staring at my daughter. I don't want to cause a scene, and I never say no to helping anyone asking for food, so I get up and offer to get a Happy Meal or some other combo. I didn't think anything of the staring since as new parents it's not that uncommon for people to be interested in your baby cause they're cute and special. So I get her a Happy Meal and she goes and sits down and we resume our conversation. As we talk the lady starts talking more and more agitatedly, saying things like I hate them. They can't kick me out. I wanna kill it. The entire time staring at my daughter. So we get a bit freaked and so start packing stuff up. I get up to put my jacket on. As I turned my back to her to help my wife, the lady jumps up and runs at us screaming I am gonna kill it. Before I could even register what was going on, a skinny tattooed guy jumps up and tackles the lady. He tells us to get out and so I send my wife and friends to the car and stay behind with the guy. After talking with the manager and the police, we find out she was reported a missing person from her group home 5 days ago. That man saved my daughter's life and I get free food at that McDonald's. My husband of 25 years, who's always struggled with addiction, started drinking heavily again and doing drugs again. He then decided to join a motorcycle club and things spiraled out of control. He started not coming home all weekend and telling me it had to do with club business. They also gave him a handgun to carry that he would leave around with total lack of respect. Caught him with another woman on the back of his motorcycle 2 weeks ago. Filed for the divorce that same week. I have to look for a new job and place to live. Basically, I have to start my life over from scratch. I'm terrified but I had to leave everything behind and get the heck out of there. I'm black. I live near Alabama. A friend was having a party, but she was using a different friend's house as the venue. The house was deep in the woods, and this man at the gas station was being friendly and joking with us. Everything seemed fine until he said something like, "Don't forget the clan meeting is tonight at 7. I'm kinda blacked out for a second because I'm sure he meant something else, but I got a bad vibe. My sister was beginning to berate me for running away from my problems and not taking her help. Despite having spent the last year of my life in therapy and desperately trying to sort myself out, I tried to walk away from her and calmly collect my things. I put my backpack on and turned towards the door. My sister, who has at least 150 pounds on me, grabbed the handle on the top of the backpack and yanked me backwards. She screamed at me while I cried on the ground. She pushed me into their sliding mirror closet door, shattering it. I figured out to ditch the backpack after she yanked me back to the ground a couple more times, and ran like an Olympic hurdler out of the kitchen, through the backyard, and over the fence. I didn't stop running until I couldn't run because I was dry heaving. Needless to say, she is dead to me. Holy crap, I hope you're living well. Girlfriend and I were driving back to DC at night after a weekend in Ohio and we missed our turn in West Virginia. Google Maps had us turn down a very dark dirt road lined with a lot of trees called Accidental Drive. We turned on the road and immediately stopped, looked at each other, and very quickly backed out and pulled a U-turn. Now, I don't think there was anything wrong with that road. It just looked like every road in every horror movie where a cult of cannibals wait in the trees for a car to go over a trap. I was working on my master's degree in astronomy in San Diego a few years back. I needed to get a lot of data for my thesis, which meant operating a telescope on a mountain top for a couple days straight here and there. Anyway, it's wildfire season and I wake up in the late afternoon to the smell of smoke. I go outside, and it's real smoky, like take a breath and cough smoky. I could see that a small to medium sized wildfire had started across the valley from where I was. The smoke was rising and had started to form this dark black percumulus cloud. I've never seen anything so frighteningly evil looking in my life. I got my butt off the mountain real fast that afternoon. The first time I moved out of the house I lived with an acquaintance from high school. It was fine for a while, until she got fired from her job and started paying her part of the utility bill later and later. We paid our rent separately, in person to our landlord. Before this point, we had become good friends. I tried to help her whenever I can. So when she started running behind on utilities, I tried to front the bill as much as I could. I was still working, but not making much either. She would pay me back, but then it got to the point she just didn't. When we had about 3 months left in our lease, I confronted her and said that while I enjoyed being her roommate, finances were getting tight. I wanted to continue helping her and living with her, but instead of me continuing to pay, we'd need to set up a budgeting plan and find her a job if we were going to be able to continue to afford our place. She responded with immediately by saying that I was a bad friend for not wanting to help her, and that she was tired of not being good enough for me. Then she said she was just going to move out. I was shocked. This was a stark turnaround from our usually respectful and congenial talks, but eventually said okay. I got in touch with our landlord immediately so he could prepare to look for new tenants. That was when he informed me that she owed him over $1,000 in rent. The proceedings after this were less than pleasant. She told me I was being unreasonable when I started packing my furniture within the next week. That she wasn't being serious when she berated me in our previous conversation. By the time I finally got my furniture into storage, there were snot stains on the underside of one of my sitting chairs from her friends. Ashes on and in upholstery. Couldn't tell you where I went wrong, but dang was I glad that I didn't continue trying with that one. About 2 years ago, being a teenager unable to get a car, I rode my bike everywhere around town. This particular day, I was going around the pond and stopped to change my music to my secondary playlist. Around then, I hear the guy I stopped close to telling me I had a nice bike. I take it my earbuds and tell him thanks. Then, as I start walking with it, he asks if he can get on and try riding around for a bit. Now, this was a relatively expensive bike I got for my birthday, and I let him know that. Come on man, just for a minute. He was following behind me as I walked next to my bike at this point. I felt really uncomfortable as he kept insisting. I decided I had to leave and pulled out my phone, played a ringtone noise, and picked it up like I was receiving a call. It turned out that I had to go. Might have been looking at it too carefully, but I was fully convinced he was trying to steal my bike. Back in middle school, public school, I was leaving class with my friends and there were about 5 guys who looked around 16-18 sitting on a bench near the school's exit. One of them was holding a 2x4 and another one had a steel chain. They were kinda looking at people leaving. Seemed like they were waiting for someone specific to kick his butt. Well, that looked pretty scary, but I had no reason to think they were looking for me and my friends since we didn't really get in trouble for anything. I made eye contact with one of them and I instantly got this horrible feeling but kept walking. They were around 50 feet behind us and me and my friends were about to turn the street's corner which had a big building that blocked these guys' view once went turned. I whispered to my friends when we turn this corner, fricking run, a 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 frick. The second we turned that corner we ran for dear life. Never ran so fast in my life. We were about halfway off this street and I looked behind to see the 5 guys running after us in full kill mode. I felt like a deer being chased by tigers. We were able to get to a street that had a gym where we hid for about an hour. Never saw those guys again and never got to know why they 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 to know why. When I was 18, I was leaving a party in Detroit with my roommate at the time. This was before GPS and we weren't super familiar with the city because we were from the burbs. Well, we leave the party around 3 AM in the morning and got lost and had to turn around on a neighborhood side street. A big no-no in the city after the lights go out. During this time the city did not have like 60% of neighborhood street lights working. We end up pulling down this street and about 20-30 gangbangers block party members are in the street just living it up. We part them like the Red Sea and they are all looking in the car window like who the frick are these kids? We slowly rolled through and watched all their heads turn as we drive through. No one said crap and we turned down the next street and noped the frick out of there. Sketchiest moment of my life. Was in a Tijuana strip club with a buddy who was looking to score some pills. I feel a tap on my shoulder and look to my left to find a girl, not a day over 12, in a sundress looking at me. The house madam is standing behind her looked at me inquisitively. Meanwhile, 3 guys who each look like Machete have made their way slowly around our table. I broke a land speed record getting out of that place. I went to a Winn-Dixie a few days ago with my mom. First time we went in there in a while, and I saw 3 people that went to my high school working there. I ended up waiting in the car. I have no idea why I'm just social inept. I had to move back home for a year to finish my bachelor's cause I'm stupid and followed a girl elsewhere. I avoid all my high school friends. Wasn't me technically, but a guy I met online was trying to come over my house, and I repeatedly told him I wasn't in a good space to be around anyone. He ends up forcing his way over, where I then proceed to lay out the most depressing things I've been through in my lifetime. The guy told me he was grabbing his charger and took off after that. I still laugh thinking about it. My grandfather's funeral. I have a great uncle who's an alcoholic and has been for years, so he's got a funny way of walking and talking. He normally doesn't come to events but he came to the funeral. Afterward we were all having coffee and talking and he was standing really close to me and sort of looking me up and down. I am a woman in her 20s, and I realized that there was something very weird going on. He offered to drive me home, while stepping closer to me, and I realized I had my back pressed to a wall. I walked over to my mom and gave her a hug, and whispered in her ear I need a ride home. I don't want to go home with Uncle. Luckily she didn't question me and drove me home when it was time. I don't know what exactly was going through his head, but I have never been scared of a family member in that way before. When he blew his gross cigarillo smoke in my cat's face during an argument, it was unmistakably intentional. Kicked him out with all of his clothes and crap right then and there. Most of my friends in a small town in West Virginia started doing I had hung around after high school working, partying a lot, and having fun, partying very much, like loads. This is when I decided it was time to go to college. I turned 21 my first semester while living in a dorm. I was popular, needless to say. I stuck with my studies and ended up getting a doctorate. Whenever I visit home I occasionally run into people who stayed behind. A lot of them are surprised I'm even alive, much less relatively successful. Mushrooms at a blues festival in the daytime. Nothing's worse than the fear of people thinking you're on drugs when you're trying to be discreet. When I walked into the cafeteria in my school I saw my friend and she was sitting alone at the table our group sits at, and when she saw me she sighed and slumped back into her seat, like she was expecting someone else. I played it off and sat down, and when one of our other friend walked in she said CAYLNN and patted on the seat next to her. I realized no cared about me. When I was 16, my mom booked a trip for the 2 of us to Egypt. I have very blue eyes and at the time I had blonde hair. We were with a tour group the whole time, but being post 9/11, security was crazy. We had an armed guard on our tour bus at all times. Every time we went to the hotel, we had to go through barriers with security checking our passports and the bus. The tour group went to a busy market in Cairo late one afternoon and went to a couple of different places that had perfume, silver jewelry. Everyone in the stores kept commenting about how blue my eyes were and how beautiful they were. Somehow my mom and I got 10 steps behind the rest of the group. The walkway was so narrow, we were just walking, taking everything in, when I begin to notice men coming out of the different shops. We have people behind us, next to us, then they're in front of us and closing around us. We were absolutely surrounded. People were reaching out and touching me, trying to grab my arms. My mom is trying to fight them off. Then we hear someone shouting in Arabic. One of the security guards who was with our tour was shouting at the group. He had pulled out his concealed weapon and was aiming at the group. They all part and he grabs us and drags us back to the bus. This security guard basically followed my mom and me after that. He was always waiting for us when we left the hotel and was at every place we stopped. That man didn't speak a bit of English, but I can only hope he knows how grateful I am to him. About 15 years ago I'm at my cousin's house smoking weed when in through the door walks in 5 guys each with 4 or 5 kilos of C each. They were there to break it up for further distribution. As they left they told us they left some rent in the bathroom which consisted of the bags they had the kilos in. Fast forward a couple of hours after scraping out the bags we ended up with at least 2 ounces of relatively uncut C. That was the last time I ever did coke and don't miss it. The crap like to kill both of us. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.